Hello, welcome to this short little video on the breakdown of a prairie schooner, also known as a wagon, which the pioneers used to get across for the Western movement. They moved across the Oregon Trail, Mormon Trail, and the California Trail. And I just want to break down part of a wagon. There was a lot to a wagon, so I'm going to show you the parts of a wagon first, and then I'm going to read to you a little bit out of our book on what all the wagon entailed. So to start off, the wagon has a bottom. The first part that hooks onto the oxen is called the neck yoke, which you can hook up to 2 oxen to this prairie schooner. Some of them had up to where you could hook up to 4 oxen. And then you have the falling tongue part, which this was very long, so the oxen sat way out in there. And then you have the single tree, and then into the double tree where you hooked up your oxen's lines into those. So they had the lines hooked to the oxen there. Onto your tire, there was 4 of them, and on the outside of your tire was an iron part. That way rocks and other things that you came across didn't break down the tires fast. The iron would actually push against the rocks. In the middle of the rim, or in the middle of the tire, there was a felly rim, which is made out of wood normally. And then in the middle of that, just like the tire on your vehicle, was the iron skine, and then the hub was on the inside that your tire sat on. Right in front of the tire is what they call the brake block. The brake block runs all the way up on this line right here where the brake lever. The driver, usually the father, would be sitting up here, and he could pull this brake lever and it pushed against the iron part of the wheel and slow the wagon down while he's pulling on the reins to shut the oxen down. Right here along the side is called a Yankee bed, and it's watertight so that the bed could be floated when crossing deep water, because oftentimes they had to pop up and they'd have to float across the rivers to get across. Up above that are the sideboards, which are beveled outwards to keep rain from coming in underneath the bonnet, which is over the whole top of the wagon. This is the bonnet, and it was usually made out of like a skin or a vinyl stuff. And then you have in the inside that go around where you see all these lines are wagon bows, and those were made out of wood, usually trees, stuff like that, that held up the bonnet. And then right up front here was the jockey box, which often placed on the side of the wagon along with a water barrel and chicken coop for easier access. It held different things for your animals, water, food, not necessarily water I guess, but more or less food for your chickens. You could hold food for your oxen. Different things like that were carried in the jockey box. Now let me just read you a little bit about what these wagons entailed. So you have a covered wagon which could hold 1.5 tons of supplies. So just imagine that. Or 3,000 pounds. That's a lot of weight that these wagons would pull. The wagon box measured about 10 feet by 3.5 feet, and every inch was packed with layers of the family's possessions. They loaded heavy supplies like plows, bags of seed and feed, stoves, furniture, spare wagon tongues, wheels, and axles in the bottom. Lighter articles which were used more often, such as clothing and cooking utensils, made up a middle layer, and the top layer consisted of supplies they needed every day along the trail, such as large amounts of food, especially flour, salt, beans, sugar, salt, pork, dried fruit, and coffee. Axes for chopping wood, tools for repairing the wagon wheels, and leather harnesses, and blankets and bedding also made up the top layer. They hung water bags, toolboxes, and the grease buckets filled with animal fat and tar used to constantly grease the wheels on the outside of the wagon. Crates of chickens were sometimes carried inside the wagon or attached to the outside. Butter churns filled with the cow's cream in the morning jostled around so much during the day in the wagon that by evening the cream had turned into butter. Feed troughs hung along the sides so that livestock could be fed more easily whenever it was necessary. Pioneers hoped that their animals would find as much grass along the trail as possible so they wouldn't eat any more of the precious feed supply than absolutely necessary. And you ask, why did they call these wagons prairie schooners? Well, let me tell you. Some people thought a big group of covered wagons with their white tops billowing in the wind looked just like a fleet of ships or schooners with big white sails. The covered wagon was often called a prairie schooner for that reason. Hope you enjoyed my little breakdown of a wagon. Later on in the week, we will be taking a test on the wagon to see how many parts you do remember. Good luck, and let's enjoy some more on the Pioneers traveling west.